Shabbat Shalom. All right, welcome back to Classroom, everybody. This is our last gathering for this month. All right, next week we don't have the gathering here. It's for home groups. Okay. Our study today is entitled Seed of Abraham. Seed of Abraham. And it is based on our Torah portion for the week. Who here has decided to do Torah portions this year? Show of hands. Who here is doing the Torah portions? Few of us. Okay. How many of us were able to read the assignment for today's class? It was the Torah portion. Okay. I do encourage you each week. I am posting the Torah portion on our Facebook group, our WhatsApp group. It's available to you. And by Friday night, it should always be up. So it's a great way to welcome in Shabbat on Friday evening by reading through the portions on your own, or also doing it with your own Torah families. Okay. Our portion today, we're reading from Genesis 25 to 28 portions of it. And today we're going to read through some of it, not all of it. All right? It's a very interesting story. If you know where we are in the story of Genesis, we're at chapter 25, verses 19 through 34. Here is the history of Yitzhak, Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Yitzhak. Yitzhak was 40 years old when he took Rivkah, the daughter of Bethuel the Arami from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban the Arami, to be his wife. Yitzhak prayed to Jehovah on behalf of his wife because she was childless. Jehovah heeded his prayer, and Rivkah became pregnant. The children fought with each other inside her so much that she said, "If it's going to be like this, why go on living?" So she went to inquire of Jehovah, who answered her, "There are two nations in your womb. From birth they will be two rival peoples. One of these peoples will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." All right, so Rivkah, or Rebecca, all right, she inquired of Jehovah during her difficult pregnancy. Once again, if you hear me saying Jehovah, that's the way that I pronounce the proper name of God, as symbolized here through the YHWH, or in Hebrew, Yud He Vav He. So she goes on and inquires about this during her pregnancy. And it's interesting the wording that Jehovah says. He says, "Within you are two nations." Two nations. Imagine, like, it's bad enough having one kid in there, and then you got two kids, but now you're like, whoa, I got two nations in me. And they are at war, like, forever. Okay? And there you have interesting pictures, children fighting in the womb. Let's continue, verse 24. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. The first to come about was reddish and covered all over with hair, like a coat. So they named him Esau, or Esau, which means completely formed, that is, having hair already. Then his brother emerged, with his hand holding Esau's heel. So he was called Yaakov. He catches by the heel, he supplants. Yitzhak was 60 years old when she bore them. The boys grew, and Esau became a skillful hunter, an outdoorsman, while Yaakov was a quiet man who stayed in the tents. Yitzhak favored Esau because he had a taste for game. Rivkah favored Yaakov. Look at that last sentence there. Yitzhak favored Esau. In other translations, it says that he loved Esau because he had a taste for game. So he loved Esau for what he did for him, what he could do for him. All right, and the Hebrew word there implies he loves him because of something he's getting. All right, but then that same word, favored or loved, Rivkah favored Yaakov. It's this ongoing sort of love. She just loved him, not because of anything she could get out of him. So there's a little bit of a difference. Parents that are playing favorites. All right, how many of you were your parents' favorite?
I still am.
How many of you think you're your parents' favorite?
Oh, I know.
Sometimes you're convinced that another brother or sister is actually the favorite.
They took them. They took them.
Now, those of you that put your hand up, you being the parent's favorite, why do you think you're your parent's favorite?
You look alike.
You look alike. Are you the favorite?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
That's right, Ethan. Claim it.
Is it because of the things you do for your parents, you know? Or is it simply because your parents just love you, you know? Or favor you over your siblings? So Esau, he was a hunter. And Yaakov was more of an indoors sort of guy, all right? Stayed home, helped with the chores, you know. Esau was wild. He didn't like being tied down. He liked going out into the field, playing the game. And here we go. Verse 29. One day when Yaakov had cooked some stew, Esau came in from the open country, exhausted, and said to Yaakov, "Please, let me gulp down some of that red stuff. That red stuff. I'm exhausted." This is why he was called Edom, which means red. Yaakov answered, "First sell me your rights as the firstborn." What? "Look, I'm about to die," said Esau. "What use to me are my rights as the firstborn?" Yaakov said, "First, swear to me." So he swore to him, thus selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. There he is, gulping down the red stuff, that red stuff. Later he's called Edom. Okay? It looks green in the picture.
You're gonna die.
It's interesting when we look at that.
What the freaking?
Sell me your birthright. And without second thought. Okay, fine, what good is it? I'm about to die anyway. Just take the birthright. I don't want it. What is the birthright? The birthright of the firstborn, okay? It holds a lot of the responsibility for the entire clan. You have the birthright, you are now the leader of the family. You take care of everybody. Essentially, you're providing for everyone. You make sure nobody's in lack, and it's your responsibility to take care of them. It's interesting that Yaakov had no problem taking on that burden. Some people today would consider that a burden. Wait, so I don't just take care of my family, I have to take care of my sister's family and my brother's families, and they think it's a burden, a heavy thing to carry. But what an honor it is to be in such a position. And more than just taking care of them, they're also responsible for teaching them the way of Jehovah. Most importantly, all right? Because they had to learn how to walk in this way. They had to learn how to follow God. All right? And that was part of the birthright of the firstborn. Esau, obviously he didn't want it. He didn't care for it. He didn't want the responsibility or to be tied down. He had no problem giving it to his twin brother Yaakov. He was probably older by a few minutes. What good is my birthright? Who cares? I don't want the birthright. You take it. In Genesis chapter 26, we're not reading it, all right? It tells a story about Isaac, their father, okay? And when he goes into this land, the famine came over the land. Yitzhak went to Gerar, to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And Jehovah appeared to him and said, "Don't go down to Egypt, but live where I tell you. Stay in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. Because I will give all these lands to you and to your descendants. I will fulfill the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. I will give all these lands to your descendants, and by your descendants all the nations of the earth will bless themselves. All this because Abraham heeded what I said and did what I told him to do. He followed my mitzvot, my regulations, and my teachings." All because Abraham obeyed. He trusted and obeyed God. All right? And that was counted to him as righteousness. He didn't have to try and keep a law. He didn't have to do anything to please God. All he was doing was trusting what Jehovah said and following suit. All right? Interesting that covenant, that promise that was made to Abraham, it's reiterated here to the son Isaac. Okay? And Isaac receives the same thing. Remember, Abraham didn't have that promised son. He had Ishmael first, through the slave girl, and then he had Isaac eventually through his own wife Sarah when he was 100 years old. Okay? Like father, like son, maybe, because Yitzhak didn't have these children until he was how old? 60 when the kids were born. He was 60 years old already before he had his sons. So there's this interesting pattern in the Bible when we read about these children that come late, okay, to mothers that may have been considered barren. All right, they're miraculous births that God allowed to happen, all right, and He has a great purpose for these births. Interestingly, Yeshua, our Messiah, He was born to a virgin, all right? She didn't even lay with her husband yet, and there was a baby in her womb, another miraculous birth. Yeshua's cousin, John the Baptist, all right, the one that preceded him, was born to his mother Elizabeth in her very old age. So all these people born late to women in the Bible have a very specific purpose, all right, from their birth. And the purpose here, two great nations are warring inside of Rebekah, okay? We read at the end of Genesis 26, when Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives Yehudith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basmat, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Okay? But they became a cause for embitterment of spirit of Isaac and Rebekah. So it's like in-law rivalry, all right? Bad in-laws. The daughter-in-laws of Isaac and Rebekah, oh, they made their parents like a living hell. They did not like it. It was embitterment for their spirit. And Rebekah would not have it. Let's continue reading Genesis 27. In the course of time, after Yitzhak had grown old and his eyes dim, so that he couldn't see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am. Look, I'm old now. I don't know when I will die. Therefore, please take your hunting gear, your quiver of arrows, and your bow. Go out in the country and get me some game. Make it tasty, the way I like it, and bring it to me to eat. Then I will bless you as firstborn, before I die." Rivkah was listening when Yitzhak spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went out to the country to hunt for game and bring it back, she said to her son Yaakov, "Listen, I heard your father telling Esau your brother, bring me game and make it tasty, so I can eat it. Then I will give you my blessing in the presence of Jehovah before my death." Now pay attention to me, my son, and do what I tell you. Go to the flock and bring me back 2 choice kids. I will make it tasty for your father, the way he likes it, and he will bring it to your father to eat, so that he will give his blessing to you before his death. Yaakov answered Rivkah his mother, "Look, Esau is hairy, but I have smooth skin. Suppose my father touches me, he'll know that I'm trying to trick him, and I'll bring a curse on myself, not a blessing." But his mother said, "Let your curse be on me. Just listen to me and go get the kids." Kids are not human kids. These are like the goats. So he went, got them, and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared them in the tasty way his father loved. Next, Rivkah took Esau her older son's best clothes, which she had with her in the house, and put them on Yaakov, her younger son. And she put the skins of the goats on his hands and on the smooth parts of his neck. Then she gave the tasty food and the bread she had prepared to her son Yaakov. He went to his father and said, "My father." He replied, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Yaakov said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I've done what you've asked me to do. Get up now, sit down, eat the game, and then give me your blessing." Yitzhak said to his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Jehovah your God made it happen that way." What? There she is, dressing up her son, ready to deceive her husband. Because remember, who did Rebecca love? Jacob. This is the son she loved. She wanted to do everything. But also remember what we read about earlier. When she inquired of Jehovah, he said that the younger will be served by the older. All right, she held that in her heart. She got that word from Jehovah. Whether she told her husband ever, I don't know. But I think that might have had something to do with why she chose to love Jacob the way that she did. Verse 21. Isaac said to Yaakov, come here close to me so I can touch you, my son, and know whether you are in fact my son or not. Yaakov approached Yitzhak, his father, who touched him and said, the voice is Yaakov's voice, but the hands are Esau's hands. However, he didn't detect him, because his hands were hairy like his brother, Esau's hands. So he gave him his blessing. He asked, are you really my son Esau? And he replied, I am. He said, bring it here to me, and I will eat my son's game, so that I can give you my blessing. So he brought it up to him, and he ate. He also brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Yitzhak said to him, come close now, and kiss me, my son. Man, when I see a picture like this, thinking goat's hair on the arms and the neck, like, Esau must have been really, really hairy. Gross. Verse 27, he approached and kissed him. Yitzhak smelled his clothes and blessed Yaakov with these words. See, my son smells like a field, which Jehovah has blessed. So may God give you dew from heaven, the richness of the earth, and grain and wine in abundance. May peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. May you be Lord over your kinsmen. Let your mother's descendants bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. But as soon as Yitzhak had finished giving his blessing to Yaakov, when Yaakov had barely left his father's presence, Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting. Dun dun dun. He too had prepared a tasty meal and brought it to his father. And now he said to his father, let my father get up and eat from his son's game so that you may give me your blessing. Yitzhak, his father, said to him, who are you? And he answered, I'm your son, your firstborn, Esau. Yitzhak began trembling uncontrollably and said, then who is it that took game and brought it to me? I ate it all just before you came, and I give my blessing to him. That's the truth, and the blessing must stand. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst into loud, bitter sobbing. Father, bless me too, he begged. He replied, your brother came deceitfully and took away your blessing. Esau said his name Yaakov really suits him, because he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and here now he has taken away my blessing. Then he asked, haven't you saved a blessing for me? Yitzhak answered Esau, look, I have made him your lord, and I have given him all his kinsmen as servants, and I have given him grain and wine to sustain him. What else is there that I can do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Father, bless me too. Esau wept aloud, and Yitzhak, his father, answered him, here, your home will be of the richness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. That's what's written in the passage. But contextually, for it to make sense, it means that your home will be away from the richness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above. You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you break loose, you will shake his yoke off your neck. Esau hated his brother because of the blessing his father had given him. Esau said to himself, the time for mourning my father will come soon, and then I will kill my brother Yaakov. But the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rivkah. She sent for Yaakov, her younger son, and said to him, "Here, your brother Esau is comforting himself over you by planning to kill you. Therefore, my son, listen to me. Get up and escape to Laban, my brother in Haran. Stay with him a little while until your brother's anger subsides." Rivkah hears everything, eh? "Your brother's anger will turn away from you, and he will forget what you did to him. Then I'll send and bring you back from there. Why should I lose both of you on the same day?" Rivkah said to Yitzhak, I'm sick to death of Hittite women. If Yaakov marries one of the Hittite women, like those who live here, my life won't be worth living." Chapter 28, verse 1. So Yitzhak called Yaakov, and after blessing him, charged him, "You are not to choose a wife of the Hittite women. Go now to the home of Bethuel, your mother's father, and choose a wife there from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brothers. May El Shaddai bless you, make you fruitful, and increase your descendants, until they become a whole assembly of peoples. And may he give you the blessing which he gave Abraham, you and your descendants with you, so that you will possess the land you will travel through, the land God gave to Abraham." So Yitzhak sent Yaakov away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel the Arami, the brother of Rivkah, Yaakov's and Esau's mother. They really want to make sure you know exactly who they're talking about, right? Now Esau saw that Yitzhak had blessed Yaakov, and sent him away to Padan Aram to choose a wife from there, and that he has blessed him, and that as he blessed him, he charged him, "You are not to choose a Canaanite woman as your wife," and that Yaakov had listened to his father and mother and gone to Padan Aram. There he is, off on his journey to his uncle's house. At the end of Genesis 28, we read, or at verse 8, "Esau also saw that the Canaanite women did not please Yitzhak his father. So Esau went to Ishmael, and took in addition to the wives he already had, Mahalat, the daughter of Ishmael, Avraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife." So Esau had 3 wives, okay? 2 of them were, the first one was Ada, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, Oholibama, daughter of Anna, and granddaughter of Zilean the Hivite. And then you have here Mahalat, or Basmat, the daughter of Ishmael. Do you remember who Ishmael is? The firstborn of Abraham. Alright? He too did not receive the birthright. He too did not receive the blessing. It's an interesting pattern, because the birthright, biblically, is usually reserved for the firstborn. But most of the people in the line of promise, it's interesting that the firstborn was typically passed over. Alright? And we see that happen a lot. Even amongst the children of Israel, Jacob later becomes Israel, and he has 12 sons, and the birthright was passed over to the 4th son, Judah. From Judah is where we get the Jews. From the tribe of Judah, Yeshua, our Messiah, was born. So that line of promise came from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is Israel. Through the line of Judah came the Messiah. Okay.
Question.
Yes?
With the participation of Rebecca,
I'm sorry?
Rebecca.
The participation of Rebecca?
or whatever she did, did she actually fulfill what was told to her while she has the 2 baby in the womb, when she inquired of God that, okay, the older will serve the younger? Or did she break the lineage by favoring Jacob, and she orchestrated for Jacob to get the blessing?
I think you kind of answered your own question, because she did inquire of Yehovah, all right?
Mhm.
And Yehovah said the elder will serve the younger, right? I don't think she broke God's plan, or that she broke the lineage. I do believe, however, that she in the way that she acted, she did take matters into her own hands. All right, similarly to how Sarah and Abraham took matters into their own hands when they didn't have a child of their own. They made their decisions, and yes, it got them a son. It got Ishmael, but that wasn't what God had planned. Now, whatever God says is going to be, because He is sovereign and He is truth, what He says is going to be will always be. So whatever Rebecca decided to do here, I believe Jacob would have become that person that God chose for the line, regardless of what Rebecca did. Yes?
Well, it's just whenever like you look at that whole lineage, I was like at the end when Joseph was saying that, you know, whether people are intentfully malicious against you, this is what I tell people all the time. Someone is intentfully malicious, it doesn't mean that, you know, God uses everything. And like one of the only circumstances we can look at in this lineage is when Abraham, God made a promise. He was already knife in hand, like ready to strike, right? But God intervened in that moment. And we don't know how God would have done it for Jacob and Esau because they intervened. Like I don't know how, like with a lot of these things, you know, they intervened. And I'm sure God would have made a way, but He makes a way whether you go with Him or without Him, God's will be done, no matter what happens. So you can either go along with it, or you can try and do it on your own.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Rebecca's actions here kind of looked like she was trying to go along with what God told her.
Yeah, in her own understanding.
In her own understanding, in her own way. She might have jumped the gun a little bit. But there was supposed to be this rivalry that continued between the brothers for generations. Right? We see here a picture of Israel. Okay? The land of Israel. Okay? And look where Edom is. Right down here. Okay? South of, what is this here? The river. Okay? Edom settled down here, away from the richness of the land. You see, in the hill country, that's where Esau, later he became known as Edom, all right, because he ate the red stuff. Away from the richness of the dew of heaven and the richness of the land. Okay, down there, that's now modern day Jordan. Just an idea of where he settled. That was his blessing. You can add something.
So, one of the thoughts that we have is always that, you know, when it came to what happened here, that the deception pushed for this timeline. But the other thing that we have to consider as well is that how about if she hadn't pushed the timeline? It would have still happened, but I don't think that Jacob would have had all the consequences that came after, because it was not an easy way back. And once he left, he never saw them again. He never saw them alive. So it's to also know that although things still work together for the good, especially if we return back to the path that we're supposed to be on, all of these other things could also have been avoided, which have generational consequences across different groups. And so it's like there's a fullness that God wants to give us in His covenant, and He still fulfills that. But we could also have had a fullness of the covenant too if we continue to follow.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I think, yeah, I always say that God works with our choices. All right? We are free to choose what we're going to do, right? We're free to choose how we're going to live, and it's either we align with Him and His purposes, or we jump the gun and do things our own way, all right? But ultimately, we understand God's will always be done. It might look roundabout, it might have to take some twists and turns, but His will always be accomplished. All right, we're going to jump to the prophets section of our Torah portion, and we're only going to read these 5 verses found in Malachi. Okay? Malachi 1, verses 1 to 5. The prophecy of the word of Jehovah to Israel through Malachi. I love you, says Jehovah. But you ask, how do you show us your love? Jehovah answered, Esau was Yaakov's brother. Yet I loved Yaakov, but hated Esau. I made his mountains desolate and gave his territory to jackals. Edom says, we are beaten down now, but we will come back and rebuild the ruins. Jehovah Sabaoth answers, they can build, but I will demolish. They will be called the land of wickedness, the people with whom Jehovah is permanently angry. You will see it and say, Jehovah is great, even beyond the borders of Israel. Interesting prophecy. All right? They will be called the land of wickedness, the people with whom Jehovah is permanently angry. So what happened to Edom? That little land there at the south of the water. Okay? The Edomites first settled in the mountainous region of Seir, which is in what is now southwestern Jordan. Okay? After the Babylonian conquest of Judah in the 6th century BC, the Edomites migrated into southern Judah, an area that became known as Idumea. Okay? Eventually pushed out of their original territory by the Nabateans around 300 BC, and were later assimilated into the Idumean region there in southern Judah. In New Testament times, people of the southern area were known as Idumeans. The most famous Idumean was King Herod the Great, who was of Edomite descent and ruled over Judea during the time of Yeshua. You guys know that story? Now, Christmas time's coming up. You're going to be hearing the nativity story all the time. All right? And you're going to hear about this wicked King Herod that was ruling when Yeshua was born. And his kingship was being threatened, and he said, kill all the Hebrew boys, kill all the baby boys in the land. All right? 2 years old and younger. Because there was a threat to his kingship. He was a descendant of Esau, an enemy of God's lineage at work. And he was used to try and attack this line before the most important birth of any human being in this world had ever seen. He was to put an end to the life of Yeshua. It's no mistake that he was the warring nation that was warring inside of Rebekah's womb. You can't make this up. This is history. Our portion for this week is called Toldot. And Toldot means history or generations. All right? I love reading the Bible and understanding who's related to who. Where did they settle? I look at the maps. I love to see their journeys. I want to see what happened after they left that land. Who were they involved with? You know, and I want to understand how God uses all these people and their happenings to have his will come to fruition. That's why I love the genealogies and reading through the stories. This was pretty interesting to me. Of course, our study today was entitled Seed of Abraham. What is Abraham's seed? Or who is Abraham's seed? Some people say, oh, well, seed of Abraham, that's just Jesus. Only him, because it's one seed. Seed is both singular and plural, all right? To be seed of Abraham, we're going to read one of the passages from the New Testament that speak about seed of Abraham. But before we do, I want us to look at Abraham and his wives. Sarah had Ishmael. Well, not her own. It was her slave girl that had Ishmael. Okay? Hagar. Sarah had Isaac. And from Isaac comes Judaism and Christianity. It's interesting. Hagar through Ishmael, and then Keturah had several sons. Okay? But through each of these, the Promised Line, Judaism at about 1500 BC, Christianity is born at about 30 AD, the different religions of the world, the oneness religions, or the one God religions. From Hagar, her son was Ishmael, the firstborn of Abraham. You have an understanding, Islam, okay, they identify with the line of Ishmael, a seed of Abraham, because there's a biological lineage of Abraham. Okay. That at about 610 AD, it's a very young religion compared to Christianity. In 1844, this is interesting, the Babi faith, the Bab, all right? There was a fella that came out of Sharia Muslims, all right? And Ali Muhammad, I want to get this right. Look it up, there's a name. I don't want to give you false information. Because this isn't in the Bible, this is like later. Babi faith. Okay, so it was founded in Iran by Syed Ali Muhammad Shirazi. Okay? In 1844, he was later assassinated in 1850. He was killed. And the Babi faith continued for a few more years. Okay? This was a Messiah movement out of Islam. A messianic movement out of Islam through this Ali Muhammad Shirazi. Okay. After that, there's this current faith that still stands today, the Baha'i faith religion. This is a oneness religion, and they're identifying with the seed through Keturah, all the other sons of Keturah. Okay, so not Isaac, not Ishmael, but all the other sons. And all these different religions all call Abraham Father Abraham, the father of the faith. And they're all claiming, well, we all come from him, so we are seed of Abraham. Okay? What we read about seed of Abraham in the Bible, when it's mentioned, it's speaking primarily of the Jewish people that are taking this claim, first of all. Sorry, here's another map. You guys down? All right, so this was in BC. This is what it looked like. The map. There's the Arabian Desert, Mesopotamia, Babylonia. This is where Abraham came from. And he traveled all the way up here and all the way down here into Egypt. Okay? That's the area there. It's Damascus. And now, you see Edom is where Jordan is, but Edomites got shifted into here, into southern Judah. This is Israel. Small little piece of land compared to all the surrounding areas. All right, and a lot of Esau's descendants and those that identify with fill up much of this land. The peoples that Jehovah would be angry with permanently. Now, this isn't to say that God hates people. It said that he hated Esau. It didn't mean that he hated the way we understand hate. Okay? There was favor shown to Jacob. There was a care shown for Israel. Okay? But Esau, if he was separated, all right, certain things were taken away from him. It's not that he hated them the way we understand hate. Okay? And all these people are still warring for that little piece of land. And in that little piece of land, you have the Gaza Strip. Okay? The West Bank. And to this day, you still see the war, the Palestinian flags and the Israel flags. You still see these two nations warring. You drive past the college campuses today, you could drive across City Hall, and you'll see some flags being flown, and a lot of people don't understand why it is they're supporting Palestine. What is it that they're supporting? Oh, they should have their own land. And that's all that Israel gets. The land that God gave to his people, that he promised to Abraham. This is in our Bible. This is in the scriptures. This is what God prophesied about. This is why it's important. And to understand that all those that war against Israel, that war against Jacob, those who bless Jacob will be blessed. Those who curse Jacob will be cursed. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. And when we align with the foes, not just of the land of Israel today, but everything that Israel is, that we understand through the scriptures, you are going against God's chosen line, God's chosen people, the people that he made his promises with and his covenants with. The very covenants that we hope as believers today, as Christians, we hope that we can receive God's promise and take part in that. We can only do that if we are part of Israel. Do you understand this? When we align with the world and the ways of the world, or any of the enemies of God, remember, being a friend with the world is enmity with God. Do you understand that statement now? To be set apart by God. A remnant of God's people, because not even all the Jews are going to be saved. But a remnant of the Jews will be saved. Now we move to the New Testament. We did our Torah portion. We did that passage from Malachi, from the prophets. And now we're moving into the apostles here in Paul's work in Romans chapter 9. I am speaking the truth as one who belongs to the Messiah. I do not lie. And also bearing witness is my conscience, governed by the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. My grief is so great, the pain in my heart is so constant that I could wish myself actually under God's curse and separated from the Messiah, if it would help my brothers, my own flesh and blood, the people of Israel. They were made God's children. The Shekinah was with them. The covenants are theirs. Likewise, the giving of the Torah, the temple service, and the promises, the patriarchs are theirs. And from them, as far as his physical descent is concerned, came the Messiah, who is over all. Praised be Yehovah forever. Amen. So Paul's writing this, and it's in the middle of his letter, right? But it's as though he's starting again. I'm not lying, I'm telling the truth. Everything I've said so far is trustworthy. All right, and he's making a point at this point in the passage, because what he's going to say is very important, and we must pay attention. Okay? It's interesting because that phrase that he said reminded me of Rebecca, right? When Jacob was worried about a curse coming upon himself because of his deceit, all right? And she said, oh, let the curse be on me, all right? In the same way, because she loved her son so much and wanted to see the plans of God fulfilled, that she would take the curse on herself if it would help her son fulfill God's purpose. Same thing, Paul. I will take the curse upon myself and be separated from Messiah if it means that you could be joined with him. And who's he speaking to? Not Gentiles, his fellow Jews. See that? Some people say, oh, Paul, he's the one that tells us as Christians how we're supposed to live as Christians today. I go against that line of thinking. Paul was very Jewish. He was so Jewish. He knew the Torah inside out. He taught the Torah. And here he is begging his fellow Jewish believers to come and believe in Messiah, still upholding his Jewishness, not creating a new religion out of it. Okay? Let's continue. But the present condition of Israel does not mean that the word of God has failed, for not everyone from Israel is truly part of Israel. That could be confusing. We remember Israel's name, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Okay? How this could read is, for not everyone from Jacob is truly part of Israel because of the natural birth. Okay? Indeed, not all the descendants are seed of Abraham. Rather, what is to be called your seed will be in Yitzhak, not Ishmael. Okay? It's to be in Isaac. In other words, it is not the physical children who are the children of God, but the children the promise refers to who are considered seed. For this is what the promise said. At the time said, I will come and Sarah will have a son. Once again, it's talking about Isaac, not Ishmael. Okay? And even more to the point is the case of Rivkah, for both her children were conceived in a single act by Yitzhak, our father. And before they were born, before they had done anything at all, either good or bad, so that God's plan might remain a matter of his sovereign choice, not dependent on what they did, but on God who does the calling. It was said to her, the older will serve the younger. This accords with where it was written, Yaakov I loved, but Esau I hated. So are we to say it is unjust for God to do this? Heaven forbid. For to Moshe he says, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will pity whom I pity. Thus it doesn't depend on human desires or efforts, but on God who has mercy. For the Tanakh says to Pharaoh, it is for this very reason that I raised you up, so that in connection with you I might demonstrate my power, so that my name might be known throughout the world. So then, he has mercy on whom he wants, and he hardens whom he wants. But you will say to me, then why did he still find fault with us? After all, who resists his will? Let's pause here for a second. You see, Paul used this strategy in his teaching, where he sets up a straw man argument. And then he answers it in such a way. The straw man argument, is it unjust for God to do this? We already know that God is not unjust. We know that everything he does is just. Why would he even ask that question? Is it unjust for God to do this? Heaven forbid. No. And then he goes back to his teaching stance here. And he points back to a scripture. All right. I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will pity whom I pity. And then it talks about Pharaoh. Do you guys remember what happened with Pharaoh? He made his choices. He was elevated into this position of authority over one of the greatest nations in the world at the time. But his heart was hardened toward God. And every plague that was given to Egypt, the chance to let the people go, all right? Every time he said no, he hardened his heart. He hardened his heart. And we read later that God hardened his heart further. God hardened him further. He was an enemy of God's people, the Israelites, at the time. Okay? The enemies will always make the choice to be an enemy. Okay? If we think, oh, well, what good is free will if God's doing all that? He already knows what you're going to choose. He knows whether you have the capacity to love him, follow him, trust him, or if your heart is really just for the world.
So your statement of he works with our choices, is that in the context of someone who believes or doesn't believe? Because someone could make the excuse, well, he's already going to be gracious and he's going to make a way for my life to work out, so I'm just going to choose whatever I think is right at this point, if I'm ignorant or not. Or is there a framework that we need to kind of consider when we're saying he works with our choices?
He does work with our choices, whether we are with him or not, right? He works all things together, all right? He'll work out the things that were meant for evil and used it for good.
So when we learned about in the Torah, God gave them the choice, choose life or death, curse or blessing. In every choice we make, is it safe to assume that we are either stepping into blessing or stepping into curse? And perhaps we should pause before we choose, even if it's a small insignificant thing, whether we're stepping closer to blessing or whether we're stepping closer to curses.
Is that a question or a statement?
Both.
Okay. I think you made the statement
Is
for us
that
all.
apologism?
Rabbi Bev.
Strong man.
Yes, thank you for that. I won't add much more to that. Yes.
Well, it's. I was just thinking like along that because it's sometimes you might be paralyzed just because you're not sure like which way, right? And that's like when we study the Torah and you understand like there was a sacrifice made just for this because does anybody on earth know completely the Torah? Even Paul? No, right? Like there's no way that he could have known every single circumstance because they're like even in the law they're talk about like the greater laws, right? So sometimes one law supersedes another, and who's to say like what's the right decision in one moment or another? Only one person knows. That's God who knows, right? And so that's why there was a sacrifice for those unintentional. Sometimes you don't know, but the point is don't worry about not knowing. We're just supposed to stay in relationship, and like it's once we break that relationship, it's like, oh, it's too complicated. I don't care. I'll just do whatever I want. But if we, remain faithful to that and learning and trying to understand as much as we can, like it's really just like do your best. Like when you send your kids to school, it's like I don't care if you get a perfect mark. Do your best. We'll figure it out as we go along. Don't be paralyzed because I don't know what to do next, right? Don't worry about it.
Like when you say do your best, we're not talking about performance.
No.
Right? We're talking about the attitude of the heart and what you're lined with there. Right? I think it's important at this point to talk about don't lean on your own understanding, because then you make it about us and us thinking we have to do the right thing, this is going to matter, like as though we're in charge of our salvation. We have to remember that it's about trust. Trusting in Yeshua, the only one that is able to keep it perfectly, that is able to save us. All right? We cannot save ourselves by what we do. We could walk righteously and not be righteous at all because the attitude of our heart sucks. And that was much of Judaism during Yeshua's time. All right? They were walking uprightly, upholding the law as best they could. All right? But they made it about that, trying to get their righteousness by keeping the law. But if you break one little bit of it, you can't be considered righteous. Does that mean you stop pursuing righteousness? By no means. Continue to pursue righteousness. Just because you were saved, because Yeshua died on the cross, does that mean that you stop pursuing righteousness? No, keep pursuing righteousness. Where do we find his righteousness? In the Torah. In his instructions, in his teachings. So we walk according to his way. We live the righteous way by God's grace, by the leading of Yeshua and his Spirit. We could take no credit for our salvation. Remember, even Jacob and Esau, they weren't even born yet. They didn't even have a chance to choose to do anything yet on their own. And God already said in the womb, he separated them. He made a distinction. And his will said this is how it's going to play out. See, it is not dependent on you and what you do. Okay? But when you know the truth and you come in line with that truth, how are you going to live it out? Then it matters. Because what you choose to do shows the attitude of your heart and what you are aligning with. Either aligned with the ways of God or the ways of the world. That's it. Plain and simple. Let's continue reading, yeah? You might notice at the bottom of some of these slides that I put see these passages. We read Malachi 1 verses 1 to 5, all right? Yaakov I loved, Esau I hated. And then you could read that story, Exodus 33 verses 14 to 20, when it talks about Pharaoh and how God hardened his heart, okay? Romans 9 verse 20. Who are you, a mere human being, to talk back to God? Will what is formed say to him who formed it, why did you make me this way? Or has a potter no right to make from a given lump of clay this pot for honorable use and that one for dishonorable? Now what if God, even though he was quite willing to demonstrate his anger and make known his power, patiently put up with people who deserved punishment and were ripe for destruction? What if he did this in order to make known the riches of his glory to those who are the object of his mercy, whom he prepared in advance for glory? That is to us, whom he called not only from among the Jews, but also from among Gentiles. You could read there Isaiah 45 verses 1 to 13 and Hosea chapter 2 for further study. As indeed he says in Hosea, those who were not my people, I will call my people. Her who was not loved, I will call loved. And in the very place where they were told, you are not my people, there they will be called sons of the living God. But Yeshayahu, referring to Israel, cries out, even if the number of people in Israel is as large as the numbers of grains of the sand of the sea, only a remnant will be saved. For Jehovah will fulfill his word on the earth with certainty and without delay. Also, as Yeshayahu said earlier, if Jehovah Sabaoth had not left us a seed, we would have become like Sodom, we would have resembled Gomorrah. So what are we to say? This, that Gentiles, even though they were not striving for righteousness, have obtained righteousness. But it is not a righteousness grounded in trusting. But it is a righteousness grounded in trusting. However, Israel, even though they kept pursuing a Torah that offers righteousness, did not reach what the Torah offers. Why? Because they did not pursue righteousness as being grounded in trusting or believing, but as if it were grounded in doing legalistic works. They stumbled over the stone that makes people stumble. As the Tanakh puts it, look, I am laying as in Zion a stone that will make people stumble, a rock that will trip them up, but he who rests his trust on it will not be humiliated. That stumbling stone is Yeshua the Messiah. When you stumble on something, it makes you stop. And it makes you look, what made me stumble? It's like when I walk through the dark in my house at night, and my children leave their toys on the floor. And I trip, and I stumble, and I hurt my legs. I say, what is that I stumbled on? You know, I'm reminded, and that is what I say. What is that I stepped on? It's a Lego piece or something else. But every time I do that, as much as I get furious at that point, you know, because it's like, why are they leaving the things out on the floor again? It reminds me of this biblical truth. Sometimes God will allow us to stumble just so that we can get our eyes back on Him. Yeah. So when we read that in Romans 9, right, the Gentiles are now able to take part in the promises that were made to Israel. All right? I like this. Salvation has come to the Gentiles. They are grafted into the olive tree. Right? Gentiles were not included before in the promises and covenants made with Israel. But remember, Israel wasn't just made up of Hebrew people, of Israelites. There were people, foreigners, that lived amongst them and became part of their people. And they started to worship the one true living God. All right? So they were already partakers in what God allowed or what He was giving to the people of Israel at the time. Okay? And now, those promises, the covenants that God made with Israel, I didn't get into the whole study because this is a long study. Okay? Gentiles would have no part in what God promised in the scriptures unless they were invited and grafted into because of their believing in Yeshua. As we understand, all the scriptures, they point to Messiah Yeshua. They prophesied of his coming. They prophesied of God's plan of salvation, the work he would accomplish through Yeshua. When Yeshua died and rose again, what he accomplished there was that he opened the door that Gentiles, non-Israelites, were able to come in and become part of his people. It's not a new group of people that he said, I'm going to get rid of these Jews and I'm going to start a new church. If that's how you think, oh, too bad for the Jews, they rejected Jesus, so now we get Jesus, we get all the promises, we're the bratty little sibling that gets everything and they get nothing. And we might think that because we look, wait, hold on, so Isaac was chosen and not Ishmael? Wait, so Jacob was chosen and not Esau, right? And when we start to think, well, we're like them, we're the younger one, and forget the older sibling. You're the older one? You're the older one. The middle ones, we just hope we get caught somewhere safe. All right, and sometimes we think that way, but if that's how you think, that God would just so quickly disregard everything that he's ever promised, made his word completely irrelevant and untrustworthy, and he could just replace it with a new people because he chooses to do so, I'd be very, very concerned if that's a belief you hold about our God. Because why would I, as someone that doesn't believe anything, a Gentile, choose to trust in a God that would be so quick to just abandon everything and start fresh with something else?
Unfortunately, this is being taught throughout most of Christendom, in seminaries and religious schools, that because the Jews crucified Christ, that the promises to them are no longer relevant.
Well, they're nullified.
And that's called the replacement theology, or supersessionism. And it's really unfortunate because, and most churches don't even address this, you know?
They perpetuate it.
Yes.
Sad.
But there's so many already in history before even Christ was born. Ruth was a Moabite.
Yep.
Nineveh,
Yep.
God asked Jonah to go because God is relentless, abounding in love, changes his mind. And why do we, like the Christendom right now, it's there. There's so many. And yeah, even Esther was married to a king. That's not even Israelites or Israel.
Yeah. I mean, God's will would start going.
This is under what's called the prerogative of God. He chooses. Whatever he chooses, that's it.
It'll be.
Who are we to say, why did you choose him? I'm God, I can do anything I want. That's his prerogative. You see? And that's why when he chooses and skips the firstborn and gives the blessing to others, that's his choice. That's his prerogative.
And you touched on it with the potter, right? Isn't it the potter's prerogative what clay to keep or what clay not to keep?
Yes.
Or how to use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does the clay cry back to potter, you must use me this way? Like, do we even have that right to do that?
We are dust of the earth. Who are we, mere human beings, to go up against our Creator in his purpose and his will?
We cannot forget that point. That is his prerogative as God.
Mixed in with his prerogative is his mercy, right? His prerogative means that he chooses, right? His mercy means if you align with his prerogative, you are also part of that chosen as well. But he gets to decide how he's going to use you, and I think that that's where our human pride kicks in. It's we don't want to submit because there might be some sort of status or some sort of goal that we have in mind personally, where it's like, God must have created me for this. And when he calls us to something that seems less than what we aspire to be, we oftentimes don't want to align ourselves with him, because how can this be? So during Jesus' time, most especially around his death, there were Jews that were following him and would have followed him to the ends of the earth, and they still continue to follow him. That is what the church in Acts was built on. Then there were those who had the knowledge, and that's our caution. Our caution is, you have the knowledge, what do you do with it? Be humble when you follow him. Because the Pharisees and Sadducees carried the truth, but they did not live it. And so then it's to realize that God will still fulfill his will. His will continues, it is sovereign. It's up to us whether we're going to align with it or not. And I'd rather be humble in the path than be elevated to greatness and be lost.
You talked about mercy. When God chose Isaac, he still blessed Ishmael. Isaac had the 12 tribes, Ishmael had the 12 princes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they flourished as a nation.
Nations. Yeah.
Nations.
One more thing. I was just thinking while we're studying, and you showed me the picture of Esau, Ishmael and Jacob inside the womb, and they were fighting.
Jacob
And I
and
said,
Esau. Yeah.
they're just in there. They're not even born. But it reveals the human nature of our sin, like the inheritance, the sin that we inherit. Nobody has even taught us how to fight or scream. As soon as you're 2 years old, you already know how to act.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect picture of a sinful nature inside the mother's womb, and they're already fighting.
Did that resonate with any of you?
I think we also tend to forget that our life here is just a shadow of an actual spiritual reality. That everything we see in Scripture is a pattern that has happened before.
Yep.
So if you're looking at this big brother that is ungrateful for his positionality and whatever he's supposed to have, then you have this younger brother who just wants to live quietly, simply, and steps into it. Take it outside of our time frame. What happened in eternity? If we look at the angels of heaven, the hosts of heaven as that big brother,
Yep.
and then humanity, who the older brother was supposed to take care of, be stewards of, watch over, teach things to, take care of, and be able to impart. And what happens now is, if you take that into a greater picture, the older brother resented the positionality or didn't get what they thought they deserved, resented the younger brother, the humanity of what we are, and we are now warring in the spiritual realm as well. There are angels that chose to follow Hasatan, which now we have enmity as well with.
On earth as it is in heaven.
Absolutely. And when Yeshua comes, he's not just redeeming us, he's healing both heaven and earth. And we tend to forget that. We just think Yeshua is just coming to save us. But he's making all things new, not just here on earth, heaven as well. Because it's a shadow here. The reality is eternity.
So all the history that we read about in scriptures, right, and all the patterns and events that occur, it all goes back to this origins story that Bev just brought up, right? The reality of duality. Everything that we experience here has that spiritual counterpart, all right? The happening parallel. It tells us the truths of God's reality and all that He's created. Thank you for that. If you want, this is my last slide. I want you to go and study more Romans chapter 11. Romans chapter 11. I want you to understand really what it means to be grafted in. There are warnings for the believers that come to faith in Yeshua. Don't be so prideful because you have this salvation in Yeshua. All right? Because just as the original branches of the tree were chopped off, You think you that's been grafted in, you're going to be saved in this tree? Because of your disbelief and disobedience, you can be cut off as well. So in order to stay grafted in, friends, trust and obey. For there's no other way to be happy in Yeshua than to trust and obey. All right, friends, that's all that I got for you today. May the grace of our Lord Yeshua and the shalom of Yehovah our Father be with us all. Amen.